What up, what up, what up, what up, what it do? This is your boy, old boy, checking in from Old Boy's Corner, represent South Carolina. What it do, what it do? Thank you for checking in the Old Boy's Corner. This is your boy, old boy, representing South Carolina. And you're now rocking with the old boy in Old Boy's Corner. Today content is Alec Murdaugh retrial. Rich man's justice. He has a retrial. South Carolina man, family ran a dynasty of corruption, 3 to 4 generations of it. Alec Murdaugh. He was found guilty of unaliving his son and his wife. And when I tell you, this case really go down a rabbit hole. Please, you catch us on replay as you're coming in. Please hit that like button. And please hit that like button as you enter the building. Please and thank you. And I thank you in advance. Positive vibes only. We're going to get in here and we're going to run some content. So we're going to just go on and start off once again. Was that about the Alec Murdaugh retrial? He was found guilty of unaliving his wife and his youngest son. There was something that went wrong with the jury trial to where the clerk of court. And you're gonna see some of this commentary. We actually done this before. So, what's up, GT? What's going on? Good to see you. Hey, Kenya, how you doing? How you doing? Good to see you as well. The clerk of court actually made some comments to the jury. That clerk of court was found guilty of several charges, but jury tampering wasn't one of them. However, I believe they said it was against his Sixth Amendment right that was violated. So the Supreme Court had actually denied it at one point. And then he got approved just recently for a new trial. So he's no longer an convicted unaliver. So let's go on to get this out the way. Let's go on to get this disclaimer out the way. Disclaimer. I do not own the rights to this content. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarships, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Once again, I do not own the rights to this content. We're just doing this to educate and entertain. All right, let's get to it. It's been so long since I've been on here. Let's get to it. He said, yeah, it was a huge case a few years back. Yeah, it's right down here in South Carolina too, man. Right in my backyard. They talking about doing the change of venue because the case was so big, but the thing about it is, this case been on Netflix, it's been on Hulu, it's been on Prime. So I don't know where they can get a fair and impartial juror to try this case. But I guess if jurors do what they're supposed to do and not let outside influences have anything to do with their decision, it should still be a fair trial. But it's going to be a hard one for sure. All right, let's get into the content. Shout out to my girl, Nancy Grace.
Time killer lawyer Alex Murdaugh, death penalty. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
I agree. GT. We'll get down to it.
The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that Alex Murdaugh's trial was not fair, that the jury tampering affected the verdict.
With all of that evidence, how could they vote any other way?
Alex Murdaugh is a liar and a thief and a generally despicable human being. I really think the only thing they had is his voice being on the Snapchat.
Whoopsie. Be careful what you ask, dear, for you will surely get it. That should be the phrase ringing in Alex Murdaugh's ears about right now. He appealed his double murder conviction. It was reversed. He got what he asked for. But now the South Carolina Attorney General has said, you know what? We think the death penalty may be in order in this case. Joining me an all-star panel to make sense of what we are learning, that and so much more, as his fleet of defense attorneys say, it will be a game day decision whether Murdaugh takes a stand. Are you kidding me? There will be no way in HELL. And speaking of HELL, it will freeze over before Murdaugh puts one toe on the stand after his disastrous first appearance. Let's watch him snotting on the stand, please. The quivering, the snotting, the pinching oneself.
And I'm just going to say, I think even during the second trial, I think he still be found guilty. That's my personal opinion. Now some more opinions that that I share later on. They're still actually matched up when I first covered the case a while back. But let's go.
To make oneself cry on the stand knows no end. Take a look at this, Mark Pepper. You're the veteran defense attorney joining us at
Look at it. Take his own nowhere.
A little bit.
WLTV, boy, that had to hurt. I saw that happen. And Mark Pepper, I can't unsee it. I can't unsee it. Please, please, please put him back on the stand. What do you think?
I think you'll get your wish. I think his ego will not allow him to not take the stand, much less take the advice of his own attorneys. As you may recall, both Mr. Harpootlian and Mr. Griffin advised against him taking the stand. But
now I will say this: I disagree with that. I don't think he take that chance of taking the stand again. But he is arrogant, and you'll learn that about if you didn't watch the first trial. Some of his character witnesses said that about him, even when he was trying his cases.
That's not Alec. Alec is convinced that he can convince a juror of 12. What we saw that day, I hope to not see again, but I suspect we will see it, and probably relatively soon. Once the plaintiff rests, once the prosecution rests, I think they'll call him right quick.
You know what? 2 times around, you're thinking Murdaugh is going to make an encore performance. You know what? I'll burn that bridge when I get there. But I'm going to go over to the courthouse right now, and I'm lying on the front row. I'm not moving.
GT said the guy covered up his son's boating accident too. His son wrecked the boat while he was drunk, and the girl lost her life. Yeah. Long live Mallory Beach. Facts. And which is to believe that there was also his motive, along with his wife, allegedly wanting a divorce. So I think a lot of people miss this key point. He actually lured both of them there. The wife was staying at the beach house. The son was back and forth from the mother and the uncle. So he actually lured them to the house that day. His financials was about to get exposed. You're exactly right, GT.
Until Murdaugh gets on the stand, because I need the front row. Last time I was sitting behind the one surviving family member, Buster Murdaugh, and his now wife, and I had to keep moving around to see what was happening because I didn't want to miss one fake tear, Pepper. Okay, I blame him for his conviction, but tonight, is this true? He's actually suing court clerk Becky Hill?
Which
He's
is crazy.
Suing her. What? Whoa! Wait a minute.
When technically she helped
Gigi
him.
McKelvey joining us, investigative reporter, journalist, host of Pretty Lies and Alibis. Gigi, wait, hold on. Becky Hill, according to the South Carolina Supreme Court, handed him a reversal on a silver platter on top of the Christmas tree. Why is he suing her?
You know, when I heard he was getting a new trial, my first thought is he is going to sue Becky Hill. Now, whether or not there's any money to be had, that remains to be seen. But yesterday at the press conference, his defense attorney said part of the money they're seeking is to pay for his defense that he paid for his first trial, because her actions led to that being overturned
you know what,
and getting a new
Gigi,
trial.
I think you're awesome. You're great. You're on the ground right there. You know it like the back of your hand. But the question was, why is he suing her?
He's suing her because he wants to be reimbursed for his defense attorney fees for that first trial. They did mention they're seeking other monies, but they did not specify what for. But we do know the $600,000 specifically was mentioned for his defense fees he paid for trial number 1.
Mark Pepper joining us, veteran criminal defense attorney, founded the Pepper
It most definitely
Law
was a mess,
Firm in
GT.
South Carolina. Okay, wait.
Long corruption.
Let me understand the legal theory. She, according to the jurors,
Yes, the housekeeper. And
tainted their verdict. I think they found
he
him guilty
sued
because
himself.
he is guilty, and the
then they
evidence
get
is
the kids none of the
overwhelming.
money.
But two jurors stated that she made inappropriate comments and it colored their verdict. Fine. The South Carolina Supreme Court had to reverse. So he should be giving her a bonus. He should be sending her a fruit basket.
I agree.
Why is he suing her? What is the legal theory that Harpootlian is pulling straight out of his bony rear end?
Yeah, he should be doing exactly what he's doing, which is getting his $600,000 back that he used in expert fees.
The legal theory. Why can't anybody give me a legitimate legal theory? In our country, that's called a frivolous lawsuit. You can be yoasted, Y-O-S-T. That's the name of a case where there was a frivolous lawsuit and has come to be a moniker for frivolous lawsuits being filed. You're going to get yoasted. So can you give me a legal theory? Take 2.
Nancy,
I
the
think her
legal
name
theory
was
is very
Gloria,
simple.
too,
In
the
our
housekeeper.
country, under Section 1983 of our United States Constitution, we are granted the right to be free from outside influences at a trial on our trial before our peers. When you have an independent actor who, by the way, is a state actor in this case, she's the elected clerk of court. When you have her purposely, directly influencing the jury under the color of law, given her position as clerk of court, that opens her up to a claim of 1983, Section 1983 of our United States Constitution. That allows for her to be held liable in a civil court of law and to pay damages in addition to damages, that being $600,000 plus whatever these attorneys can elicit in the trial of that case. They would also be entitled under 1988 U.S. Constitution section to attorney fees and costs for bringing this claim. So I would argue that this is the opposite of frivolous. This is a very legitimate claim against a bad actor who is acting under the color of state law under 1983 U.S. Constitution.
There is Alex Murdaugh crying on body cam, but keep watching because suddenly.
Now, I've always thought that Becky Hill did that on purpose. And I may have been wrong about that, because why would he turn around and sue her when she actually the one helped him? If it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have got this reversal. However, we know nothing beats the double cross like a triple cross. So I still think she might have done it on purpose. She just didn't know he was going to turn around and do her like he did everybody else, which has got over on him. But let's go.
He flips it off and starts checking his cell phone. Please stay on that because I want to see him checking his cell phone. I just wish I could see the text he was actually checking that night. Okay, hold on. While we're watching Alex Murdaugh, oh, there you go, force himself to cry in front of the police.
Definitely crying.
Let me understand this. Okay, Mark Pepper, please do not throw a lot of Latin phrases. Nobody likes that. Yes, lawyers are forced to learn what they mean, but we don't speak Latin. Okay. What would be the damages? So he gets tried for murder. He gets convicted. She makes offhand comments to the jurors that two of them say color their verdict. He gets a reversal because of her. And he's suing for how much money? I think no jury is going to do this. They're going to laugh him out of court.
Well,
she threw him a bone, a life preserver.
Yeah. I would argue quite the opposite. But for her jury tampering, in his mind, he would have been acquitted. And that's his position, is that they tried a valid case. They had at least one or two jurors that clearly said she influenced their verdict. Now, keep in mind, they voted guilty. So if they're going to take the stand and say Becky Hill influenced my verdict, well, then they must have been leaning to not guilty. So his position is, you've now damaged me. I was going to get either a not guilty verdict or, at the very worst, a hung trial, a mistrial, because it wouldn't be unanimous. And so you now owe me the $600,000 in costs that I had to spend to try this first case, because I'm no closer to an acquittal or proving my innocence than I was way back in 2023.
Okay,
I mean,
I got it. So I got it. You're stating that, in a nutshell, Alex Murdaugh thinks he would have been acquitted.
Yeah.
But for Becky Hill's statements to the jury. He thinks
Exactly
he
right.
was convicted because, okay, hold on just a moment. Dr. Kendall Crowns joining us, renowned chief medical examiner, Tarrant County, that's Fort Worth, never a lack of business in the morgue, has conducted literally thousands of autopsies. He is the esteemed lecturer at the Burnett School of Medicine at TCU, and he is a star of a hit podcast, Mayhem in the Morgue. Dr. Kendall Crowns, you just heard defense attorney Mark Pepper insist that the reason Alex Murdaugh was convicted is because of the few offhand comments that the court clerk made. Becky Hill, could you refresh Mark Pepper's recollection, as we say in court, when a witness screws up on the stand? You have to go, Your Honor, may I refresh the witness's recollection? Meanwhile, you're boiling and seething inside because you have gone over the material with the witness. And yet they still say something completely different than what they told you 15 minutes before. So you have to refresh their recollection with maybe a document, or in this case, a medical examiner's report. Becky Hill had nothing to do with what happened to Paul and Maggie. Could you explain, Dr. Kendall Crowns, why the AG is now throwing the death penalty on the table? What autopsy tell you about the deaths, the murders
DP.
of Maggie and Paul?
Certainly. So let's start with Maggie's autopsy. She has 5 gunshot wounds to her body. 2 are intermediate range, meaning they have gunshot or gunpowder tattooing or stippling, meaning the gunshot wound is between 2 to 6 inches to about 2 to 3 feet away from her body. One of the gunshot wounds is actually into the back of her skull that goes through her brain. It's almost like an execution type wound. It appears that she gets shot in the abdomen, shot in the thigh at close range. She's probably fallen to her knees, and then the individual then shoots her in the back of the head, blowing out her brain, killing her at that point. She also has a gunshot wound to her left wrist, so she could have been holding her arm up trying to block the incoming bullets for all we know. So she was essentially shot to her knees and then executed. The son, on the other hand, he's shot twice with a shotgun. So whoever did the killing switched up weapons and then killed him with a shotgun, one going through.
Brutal. Very brutal. And you see, they're saying switch shotguns. I'm saying maybe somebody else dealt with him to help him. But let's go.
The chest, blowing out his armpit, and the other one entering into the neck and then blowing out the top of his head, blowing out his brain as well. So you have 2 people fatally shot. One even appears to be basically executed at the scene. So, when you're beginning to talk death penalty, you've got to weigh in a number of factors, which I know you fully understand, but it does look like at least Maggie was executed at some point.
You know, while you were talking, Dr. Kendall Crowns,
Personal.
I was thinking about, I mean, this is Buster Murdaugh. This is Alex Murdaugh's son, Maggie's son. I was thinking about my own son. And I try not to place my daughter or son in the positions of the victims. But when you're describing bullets ripping through his body, and I know from studying the crime
So that
scene that
Maggie
his
wasn't living with
brain
him when this happened.
matter was
Fact.
up on the top of a door.
Yes.
It blew out of his head with such ferocity. I know that part of his skull was found in a different
Yes,
location.
Jermaine. He lured her
I
there.
think of my son's
And his
beautiful
son.
face and head.
Yes. She
I
was
can
about to
hardly
divorce him.
think straight. And for Mark Pepper or Hart Pootland or Alex Murdaugh or anybody to say that somehow Becky Hill caused the guilty verdict, they're out of their minds. Dr. Kendall Crown, hold. Joining me right now is a very special guest. In addition to Bethany Marshall, soon to join us, Chris McDonough, Director, Cold Case Foundation, Homicide Detective, Dave Mack, a friend of Becky Hill's. Right now,
Salute, Miss Flip Mode.
and of course,
Thank you
Gigi
for checking
McKelvey.
in. Thank you.
Blanca Turabiate Simpson is joining us. This is Murdaugh's former housekeeper. She's the
Whoa.
author of an incredible book, Within the House of Murdaugh. I mean, I stayed up.
GT. I actually said that at one point in time. It was the telephone calls. It was the no one really know what Buster was, honestly. Then I was like, there's no way. But you might be on to something. You're right. It'd be hard for anybody to prove. But I won't say it's not possible. Good catch. Thank you, Flip. Thank you. Thank you. That's a good one.
Up at night and read that. Even though I knew I'd get up at 5 o'clock the next morning, I
All right, this
stayed
is
up
the
till I finished
housekeeper
it.
at the time.
Within the House of Murdaugh.com. Blanca, Mr. Beate Simpson, thank you for being with us tonight. What was your reaction when you heard Murdaugh's case had been reversed?
Okay. Flip saying the same thing.
First of all, thank you for having
That's a
me.
great possibility. I'm going to tell you who I think it was, though.
I was shocked.
I absolutely do think that he could have. But if I had to bet, if I was a betting man, I would think that it was his cousin Eddie, the one he supposed to have staged his own unaliving. But let's go. Them good points. You know, there's no right or wrong over here. Let's talk about it.
But it wasn't, the feelings were more, you know, what about Maggie and Paul? You know, here we go again.
Okay,
Are they
that's
going to
what's
be
up.
lost in all the frenzy? You know, that was my first feeling, Maggie and Paul. And I did go to the.
And what I will say about her, I think she's know way more than what she's saying. And she kind of alludes to it as well. You know, she's not going to say that she doesn't think that he was out there alone. And I'll let her speak for herself. I ain't going to spoil it. But let's go.
Cemetery, right after I heard the news. I just
Yes.
felt
Very evasive.
I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was her. You know, I could kind of hear her, you know, saying, "Girl, you need to come and see me." But I just
Always
felt the
looking
urge
up
that I
over
needed
to
to
the
go
left.
by, and even though they can't speak, just to say, "Here we go again." And that was, and I'm still upset over it. But I respect the court's decision. There's nothing I can do
we
about it.
have to respect the court's decision. I agree with you on that, Ms. Turabiate Simpson. I agree with you. If we don't respect the court's decision, we might as well be in a country that has a rule of man, not a rule of law.
Exactly.
Whether we disagree or we agree with a
The law
court's
doesn't always
decision,
law. Man. It's fact.
you swallow it like it's a lump of coal and keep going if you disagree with it, because that is the rule of law. They have ruled, and we will execute their wishes because we are
Yeah.
officers of the court and we respect the court. Doesn't mean we have to agree with the court.
Let's go. She's
But
very
what
nice,
do you-
nasty. This is my baby
what do
right
you
there.
make of it, Ms. Simpson? That it's all because of some
She is.
comments,
I
some
love it.
offhand comments. And look, I'm not saying Becky Hill didn't make the comments, and they were wrong and they were inappropriate. And the South Carolina Supreme Court had no choice but to reverse. I get it. But I don't think that what she said is why he was convicted. Did you just hear Dr. Kendall Crowns describing a tiny bit of the injuries to Maggie and Paul?
I agree with what you're saying. I believe he was convicted based on the evidence that was presented to the court. I do agree with that. But unfortunately, the limelight and the stardom, got involved in all this, and it went to Miss Becky Hill's head. And here we are again, just when we thought everybody was going back, to some kind of normalcy.
Let's go, Flip.
Here we go again with this. And it's
I
opening
love me
up,
some Nancy. for real.
the wound that was starting to close. And it's hard.
I believe the dogs told on him, that he was not alone when he made that call.
So this is gonna be very important. This is one of her first interviews prior to him being I think it was prior to him being convicted. And she says a lot. If you know anything about dogs, I know I got a lot of them. What she's saying is right. Like, it's a total different sound out there when you're there alone versus when you're out there with someone else who they don't know. But let's go. I'm gonna let her talk for herself.
Oh, he was not alone. I call them the cleaners. I will not disclose who I believe. I know who I think they are.
See, she said, I know who they are. And then she stopped herself. She said, who I think they are. She said, I know who they. She paused and realized what she hadn't said. And she said, well, who I think they are. Come on, man. Talk to us. Let us know what's going on.
I'm more than positive. I know who they are. When Alex, Maggie, and
Let's
Paul
go,
were at
Flip.
the kennels, if you hear the kennel video, you don't hear the other dogs. The dogs are calm. As soon as you hear the beginning of the phone call, the dogs are barking and moving around.
From our friends at Daily Mail, Ms. Simpson, explain to me.
And there's something else I noticed about the dogs too. The dog. He actually put the dog Buster up. You can hear him in the video. A stranger wouldn't have cared whether that dog was out once they unalived him or not. We're talking about a Labrador Retriever. We're not talking. And then if you got guns, like, it don't even matter if it was a Rottweiler or Pit Bull. A stranger wouldn't have put the dog up right before they unalive somebody. Which is crazy to me because he cared more about the dog being loose before he did these crimes, allegedly. And I don't use allegedly heavy on that. It's very loosely.
Alex Murdaugh's behavior before and after the murders.
They were normal. There was nothing that would say that they weren't a loving family. They were very caring for each other. They did everything together. They traveled together. If he was going to be gone on the weekend, him and Maggie would go together. The boys would go with him too. There was nothing to indicate that there was anything wrong with the with anybody in the family. Of course, there was stress, here and there.
And see, this is what she's not telling the truth at. And this is why I think they're trying to shadow don't want to shadow Maggie with what was really going on, just like GT said earlier. Like, she wasn't even staying there. She was staying at their beach home. He actually had to lure her there, saying that he wanted to go see his dying father at the time. So she most definitely not being completely honest here. Her and Maggie were very, very, very close as her being the housekeeper. So she most definitely not being honest right there. But we here for it. Let's go. Jermaine said the guy's a stone cold iller. He's not going to show any real emotions. I agree with you, GT.
Like, most families.
Calculated too.
But, with the pending, litigation that was coming up. But there was not any issue with them as far as there wasn't anything indicating that there was anything, wrong with the relationship.
You lying.
Or anything of that sort. After the murders, he was very he was like inconsolable. He was he would cry. He would kind of like sit and kind of like look off at a distance. But there was a lot of people around him during that time, trying to console him. And then there was moments where,
And remember now, this right here is recently. She didn't seen the trial. She didn't seen all the evidence. She saw the state paint a motive, and she's still sitting here saying that that they was a good family with just minor issues. No, it was not. Alec wanted her to sign over their deed to the house so he can get money because he owed so many people money. But she's protecting Maggie, and Maggie don't need to be protected. Maggie is gone. You can tell the truth. It's just my opinion, though.
he was fine, and then there was moments where he would just start crying.
So let me understand this. Do you in some way think Murdaugh is innocent?
Thank you, Flip.
No, ma'am, I don't.
But she did say she didn't think he was innocent. So shout out to Bianca for that. That's her name, Bianca. I know all these characters' names. Let's go.
You're on cross-examination. Who is our next sponsor? Well, here is a probative clue. Meow. Small cinnamon. Joining me now, renowned psychoanalyst out of the LA jurisdiction, Dr. Bethany Marshall. She's the author of Deal Breaker. You can see her now on Peacock and
definitely she full of it. You can see it on her face.
Her at drbethanymarshall.com.
Facts, Flip.
Dr. Bethany, I dislike him even more now after hearing Miss Simpson speak, because after the murders, he sat around and let everyone console him, knowing he committed the double murders, shooting Maggie in the back of the skull, execution style, stippling. You've been with us enough to know what that means. That means that the gun was so close to her head, it burned her skin. And he is getting consoled, and people are making food for him and bringing him flowers and patting him on the back and handing him Kleenex. Really is disgusting.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in.
Well,
Please hit
Nancy,
that like.
not only is it disgusting, it's his moment of glory, right? So, Alex Murdaugh was excellent. He was practiced at extracting resources from other people, whether it's money from clients' trust funds, whether it was sympathy from the people around him. He was good at acting. And Nancy, let me remind the viewers that his offending pattern was he would spend money that was not his to spend. Maybe he stole it from a client trust account, or he would, like with Gloria Satterley, he would say to her sons, hey, why don't we just file a wrongful death lawsuit against me and you can have the money. Then, of course, he keeps the money. So
can you imagine him having them kids thinking that he was suing himself? How heroic of him to sue himself, since she eventually she got hurt and she ended up passing later on. Imagine him being a heroic figure saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to sue myself and I'm going to look out for y'all. And give them kids absolutely nothing. His idea to sue himself. How heroic. And I think they was the family that actually got put out on Christmas one year. It's sad, man.
What he perennially has to do is steal from the next victim in order to repay the victim from the time before. So that is exactly what he's doing with this court case. It's the same offending pattern. Now he has a chance to say, hey, I don't really owe that $600,000 to my attorneys. Becky Hill, you pay it. You're the one who
Thank you
got me
for
this
that cash
guilty
out.
verdict, so
Really
you pay
appreciate it. Thank you.
Now I have even more resources to expend. Although, you know what,
You're a real
Nancy?
one. Thank you.
You know who he's stealing from now? He's stealing from the taxpayers. He's stealing from us because this is going to be a new, long, expensive court case. So the offending pattern is going on and on and on. It's like, will it never end? And I bet whatever depression he was experiencing behind bars has evaporated because he's gotten away with it once again.
Dr. Bethany, what I don't understand is how you can keep a straight face with everyone rubbing your shoulders and handing you Kleenex and making you chicken soup after you just murdered your son and your wife and left them to bleed into the dirt in the dog kennel.
They were all marks, just like all of his clients who he stole from out of their trust funds, and then the people from the church and his housekeeper and everybody cooking for him. He loves to manipulate out of other people. He loves to get things that are not his to get, that do not belong to him. Even if it's just sympathy, he loves to get it. Nancy, he doesn't have a conscience. He's one of these people where we can truly and accurately use the word cold-blooded, because if you heard the housekeeper just now, Bianca, she's talking about how he was going on trips with the kids and they're going hunting together and all of that. He's acting like a dad, Nancy, whereas people have no problem just seeing their brains splattered out somewhere. That's how.
So as you see on the screen, these are the alleged deaths that have been taking place by this family that we know of. Stephen Smith. I'll leave that part out. But Stephen Smith was because I don't know how to say it. So Stephen Smith was found on a road close to their property, found unalive. Gloria Satterfield was the housekeeper who he sued himself for and didn't give the kids any money. Mallory Beach is the one that Paul unalived, his son, during a boat accident to where he wanted to drive intoxicated. He tried to come and cover that up. It failed for him miserably, but he tried. And then you have Maggie, his wife, who was looking for a divorce. Then you had Paul. And he felt like that if Paul went there, in my opinion, he wouldn't have to face that lawsuit. And because the lawyer of Mallory Beach was talking about subpoenaing his court records. His financial records. And they was going to find out that proof of how he had been mishandling money. Let's go.
Little he actually thinks of them. They're just like a woman putting on jewelry. That's just adornment. It's just jewelry. It's just there to make her look better in the moment. That's what his family was like. They actually, in a way, were like the beard. They were the people who he assembled around him to make him look normal while he was stealing from other people. So he, in a way, recruited them as foot soldiers in his crime enterprises.
Joining me now, Director Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective who has worked over 300 homicides, and he is the star of The Interview Room on YouTube, our friend, our colleague, Chris McDonough. We disagree wildly on the Guthrie case, but I believe we agree on this case. Chris McDonough, have you ever seen a defendant win in court, whether it's a not guilty verdict, whether it's a motion, whether it's getting rid of a juror they don't like, and you look at them, you know they did it, and they're getting a victory like Murdaugh has gotten? This is a huge victory. To get a reversal on a double murder, that hardly ever happens. but it has happened. And then the prosecutors, the sheriffs, SLED, South Carolina law enforcement, they have to watch him
South Carolina
gloat.
Law Enforcement Division.
It's sickening, but I'll tell you what's even more disturbing is imagining him at the funeral home or with everyone fawning all over him, and he knows he did it.
Yeah, I mean, we have to respect our system, right? But at the same time, to your point, exactly, Nancy, this is a gentleman, as the good Dr. Bethany has just pointed out, this guy's past feeling. I mean, he has no capacity to understand what it's like to have the sense of empathy. The fact that he pulls his wife to the property that evening,
there you go,
and then calls his son while going to the property.
There you go.
So he's got two things happening. He's calling Buster, just checking in on the family, saying he's going to go see Mom and Paul, while intentionally knowing he's going to blow their heads off and or execute them, as Dr. Earlier had pointed out. This guy set this entire thing up. God set a witness at that kennel that evening, and that was the dog. And then the second piece of that, obviously, was the video.
And remember, the dog Cash being there. That was a dog named Cash. They was watching, holding the dog, watching the dog for one of Paul's friends. And remember, he denied he had been there, around the times of the unaliving. And that's why he hauled ass to his mother's house, thinking that it was going to give him an alibi. But boy, did you know that dog on that Snapchat video, what put him there. Shout out to Cash and Cash owner. Because if it weren't for that, I believe he would have got away with it.
Where you can hear his voice. This guy, if he ever gets another opportunity, I agree. I think he's going to take the stand. I think it would be a foolish thing to do, obviously, but I believe he may take the stand again, and we're up for another crazy time.
Alex Murdaugh is heading to a retrial. Very quickly to Mark Pepper, a veteran trial lawyer out of Charleston, South Carolina. It's very rare that a murder case, much less a double murder case, gets reversed, but it has happened.
That's why the title says a rich man's
on
justice.
God's green earth, Mark, that the state is going to enter into a guilty plea.
0.0% chance. And even if one were to be offered, Nancy, there's a 0% chance that Alec would even entertain it. This is going to trial. But the Attorney General's office has already indicated that they intend to re-indict, should they choose to, and get this case to trial perhaps by the end of the year. Dick Harpootlian, Jim Griffin have all come out and said, we look forward to our day in court. The only question is where the trial may occur and when, but there's a 0% chance that anybody will be talking plea offer.
Okay. To Dave Mack joining us, Crime Stories investigative reporter. That means if there's not a plea, there's going to be a trial. There's only one way Murdaugh could plea without the state agreeing to it, and that would be a blind plea, which means you don't have an agreement as to the sentence. You just put it up to the judge. And for all we know, the judge could give him the death penalty on a blind plea, and you can't take it back once you do a blind plea. A blind plea is where the prosecutor and the defense do not agree on the sentence, and the defense just puts it to the judge. They plead guilty, and they stand there and wait to find out what the judge is going to say in sentencing. That's not going to happen. No. So Mark Pepper is right. There's not going to be a plea in this case. Listen.
Never will plead guilty. Off the table.
Listen to
on a trial. Yeah, they can dismiss it.
Yeah, they can dismiss.
Ain't nobody dismissing nothing.
But he'll never enter to a plea which required some admission that he did something he didn't do.
From our friends at Fox, straight out to Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Tell me about the death penalty. What's happening?
Well, Nancy, it was interesting that Harpootlian said, hey, what has changed in the last few years that now you put the death penalty on the table. Well, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson confirming that his office is considering seeking the death penalty against Murdaugh should he be found guilty a second time. The idea behind this is that when they did the first trial, Nancy, they were having problems in South Carolina with actually carrying out the death penalty. And there was a moratorium. They were dealing with the drugs and everything that goes into the actual death penalty sentence. That's why it wasn't put on the table the first time. Now that they're coming back to it, it's a much different situation. If you remember, during the first trial.
So I'm gonna give you a rundown on South Carolina death penalty while it was put on hold. He kind of explained it, but so the medicine that they use for the lethal injection, they had a few things that they couldn't find it, and then there was some saying that when they did find it, it was costing too much. So I think maybe about 2-3 years back, maybe 2 years back, they actually got it in now. So South Carolina does heavily believe in the death penalty, heavily. So they most definitely probably gonna put it on the table for him. And that's the only reason why they didn't do it then. It's because they didn't have the actual drug to seek it out.
There was a lot of debate over how much of the financial accusations of wrongdoing would come into the trial. Well, that's all a foregone conclusion now. We know what he pleaded there. So this is just straight up one thing and one thing only. It's the murders of Maggie and Paul, nothing else. And now South Carolina says, we're putting the death penalty on the table, possibly.
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
On Salkehatchie Road.
Okay, what's the address on Salkehatchie Road?
I'm by the church.
What church? What church are you talking about?
I don't know the name of it with the red roof.
Okay, what end of Salkehatchie Road? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
At the Hampton County side.
Okay, what's going on?
I got a flat tire,
Mm-hmm.
and I stopped, and somebody stopped to help me. And when I turned my back, they tried to shoot me.
Oh, okay. Were you shot?
Yes, but I mean, I'm okay.
You shot where? Where were you shot at?
Huh?
Did they actually shoot you or they tried to shoot you?
They shot me, but...
Okay, where you need EMS?
Well, I mean, yes, I can't drive.
Okay.
And I'm bleeding a lot.
Where part of your body?
I'm not sure. Somewhere on my head.
Gigi McKelvey joining us, investigative journalist, host of Pretty Lies and Alibis. Gigi, you remember that, right? After gunning down his wife and son, he then set up an elaborate plot to have himself shot on a rural road to make it look like the real killer was after him. Then he shows up in court after his lawyer said he had brain damage with a Band-Aid right here. Really? Do you remember that?
I remember it well. I remember getting that alert on my phone. And at first, we all thought whoever got Maggie and Paul definitely tried to get him. But very quickly, the story seemed to fall apart. And
Gigi, you actually thought that somebody else killed Paul and Maggie and they were after Alex Murdaugh? You really thought that for a minute?
Well, at the time, I thought, why would anybody just shoot him on the side of the road? I didn't think it didn't even compute that he had set this up. I mean, it's almost unbelievable to think that. So for a hot minute, yeah, I thought,
oh my goodness, look at your screen. Did you see that? Can I see his head again? There's the injury. I can't even see it.
Yeah, no, it's my kids got worse when they were little. Yeah.
Okay. But there was this one time my son scraped his knee and it was worse than that. So he actually bamboozled you, because when I heard he was shot in the head, but when I heard the 911, he's perfectly lucid. The first thing I thought was, now, how did Murdaugh arrange to be shot on a rural road to make it look like the real killer's wandering around out there? That was my first thought. And guess what?
Yeah.
That is exactly what happened.
Right. And after I heard that 911 call, I said, oh, no, this was set up. But just for a second, you hear, our local news comes across and says, Alec Murdaugh shot on the side of the road. I thought, oh, man, they got him. But after hearing that 911 call, I said, oh, no, this was an inside job. He knew exactly who did it and he set it up.
Summertime expenses stacking up fast. For many, the only option is swiping that credit card, leaving you trapped. So are they really going to go down that road, Pepper?
Well, I don't think they have a choice at this point. You're trying to create reasonable doubt. One way to do it is to point to third-party guilt. Stay within the laws and the confines of our Constitution and our rules of evidence. But yeah, some other dude did it is always a valid defense. We know Cousin Eddie's out there. We've got other, drug smuggling operations with this opioid addiction out there. I think we're going to see a different type of defense put on here in this next retrial. Some other dude did it will play at some point in this trial. They've got everything they need to do it. They've got the Cousin Eddie. They've got all the characters. You've got other, victims out there. You've got these bad actors down in the Walterboro, all the way down to Hampton County, Beaufort County. There's plenty of other people who potentially had opportunity. Now, motive, that's going to be tough to convince. Clearly, Alec would be the one that had the most motive. But certainly that is going to be a defense in this retrial. Some other dude did it.
What dude? Let me see his face while he spins out this big lie. Hold on. What dude? You're like, you know what? This is a compliment. Did you ever read to your children Rumpelstiltskin? Do you remember that?
I did,
the
yeah.
little imp that could take straw and spin it into gold. That's what Harpootlian does. That's what you're doing right now. What other dude? What some other dude?
Well, the beauty of
exactly
it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of the trial system, Nancy. Is that
my
all we
ears.
have?
And that is a good defense. I know many like to say that raise reasonable doubt. My thing is, it just raises the fact that who else was there with you? He doesn't have an alibi. His alibi fell through when that Snapchat video came out, when he said he wasn't there, that he had left and went to his mama's house. And then when he found him, how that all went down. So his alibi gone. So it's like, okay, if y'all want to put somebody else there, y'all want to say this other dude or other whoever. So you and the other dude did it. That still doesn't take you away from being there at the time of their deaths.
They're bleeding. Give me a Kleenex.
Well, look, that's what good criminal defense lawyers do.
Doesn't matter.
You take the facts they're given.
It doesn't matter who you blame. Just anybody will do.
Well, you're trying to prevent 12 reasonably minded people from convicting your client beyond a reasonable doubt. You don't have to come up with names. You don't have to come up with places of who they are and how they did it. You've just got to create the reasonable doubt by pointing to someone other than the guy sitting in the defense chair next to you. I mean, that's how those things play out. And that's what we criminal defense lawyers do and do quite well here in South Carolina.
I bet you do. I've got a question.
All right, Nancy, lay off South Carolina now.
Based on what you just said, I can see Harpootlian spinning it out and blaming somebody that would want to kill Maggie and Paul. But then suddenly it got complicated, Dave Mack. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive, Dave Mack. Because in his ill-fated effort to pretend the real killer was out there and tried to kill him on the side of the road, what he has done now is forever poison his well and telling a jury some other dude did it. Because he's already tried that once. And I can just hear the prosecution shooting a torpedo into the some other dude did it defense. And that is where the defense is headed. As Pepper pointed out, they may not have any choice. They're working with what they've got. But he's already gone to that well. He's already been there. How can he, with a straight face, claim again some other dude did it. Dave Mack, again, back to the death penalty. A lot is riding on this. The state now announcing they are considering the death penalty on Alex Murdaugh. And Dave Mack, you and I have analyzed this many, many times, the aggravating circumstances required for the death penalty, Dave, such as mass murder. More than one body qualifies as mass murder under the law. Here we've got two. Lying in wait. He lured Maggie and Paul to Moselle, the hunting lodge, and he lay in wait for the right moment to murder them. Also, pecuniary or money interest. His whole point in killing them was he did not want his financial crimes to the tune of $12 million to be exposed, as they would in a divorce proceeding or a civil lawsuit against him and his son, Paul. So, long story short, aggravating circumstances, Dave Mack. You and I covered it the first time. It's teeming with death penalty aggravation.
Nancy, you're dead on right. Everything that is needed to try this as a death penalty case is right there. When you look at the financial motive, the idea that everything in his world was falling apart financially, I mean, it was all there. On top of that, he knew there was more damage financially and otherwise coming from a possible trial about Paul's boat crash. So all of these negatives are stepping up. And, you know, the one thing that's not being mentioned, Nancy, is that Maggie was not staying at Moselle. She was at the beach house. She did not want to be around her husband anymore. And he knew it. He had to lure her back from the beach house to come to Moselle that night. And it plays out. The digital evidence is there that what took place that night, how it took place, and all the motivation to match up for what's needed in a death penalty case, it's right there.
Gigi McKelvey joining us out of this jurisdiction, South Carolina, investigative journalist and star of Pretty Lies and Alibis. Gigi, what are the betting odds that the state's going to seek the death penalty?
I think it's a very good chance. Just like what was just mentioned, is it does check all the aggravating factors. And I think that Alan Wilson, you know, a lot of people have said, is this a political move because it's re-election year? But I do think that they will go for the death penalty just to really sock it to him for having to do this twice. And also because of what was done to Maggie and Paul and how egregious it was.
We are told Vegas odds are very slim, but pointing to the state.
You know, in the state of South Carolina, they also do the firing squad. They need to do the firing squad on him. Just how he shot them. He need to be stood up and shot too.
Will seek the death penalty against Alex Murdaugh. If you believe a gambling outfit. That said, the first time around, we were told that because there had been a moratorium of sorts on the death penalty in South Carolina, it hadn't been sought for 13 years, that there was no point in seeking it because it couldn't be obtained. Well, that has changed. Let's see if the state follows through on the double murders of Maggie and Paul. And one more time to Dr. Kendall Crowns. Dr. Crowns, could you re-enlighten us, refresh our recollection on what happened to Paul and Maggie?
So again, Maggie had 5 gunshot wounds about her body.
Good to see you.
2 of which, one in the abdomen, one in the thigh, had gunpowder stippling or gunpowder tattooing, which means they occurred anywhere from 2 to 6 inches to 2 to 3 feet. So the gun was in intermediate range when it was shot at them. One of the wounds was to the back of her head that entered into her skull and went into her brain and would have killed her. So it does appear that she was shot to her knees and then executed with the gunshot wound being put into the back of her head. She does also have a wound to her left wrist, which could be her trying to block being shot at the time it was all occurring. The son has 2 shotgun
Can't
injuries,
complain. That's
one to
good.
the
Can't
chest that
complain.
comes into his chest and blows out
God
of
is
the
good.
armpit,
God is good.
and then
Positive
one that
energy.
comes into the neck and then blows out the top of his head, taking out a large portion of his brain. So they were both shot multiple times and with different weapons, one with a high-powered rifle, the other with a shotgun.
Hi, guys. Nancy Grace here. Please join us on Crime Stories.
It's crazy, man. It is crazy. So that was that video. We got some good stuff. I'm gonna go here. Listen to his the Attorney General Alan Wilson, who's actually in charge of the prosecution team, and Creighton Waters. You probably gonna remember him once you see him. Figure out it. I'm rusty, man. It's been a few weeks. Get it in here. There we go.
How is that reality settling on you guys in the week since the Supreme Court issued its reversals?
I mean, I think we've kind of resigned ourselves to it. I mean, obviously, we have always asserted and believed that Becky Hill's conduct in her interactions with the jury, while inappropriate, once we learned of them long after the fact, were harmless error. And the Gene Toll, obviously, who had the post-trial hearing, agreed with this, but the Supreme Court decided to go in a different direction, and we respect the court's decision. And so we have already.
I still stand. She did that on purpose. My gut tell me that. And I don't even know, like this lawsuit they're trying to put on her. Like I said, I don't know if just once again, don't let them beat the double cross, but the triple cross. Maybe she's being triple cross.
kind of turned the page on this and we're looking to the future.
Did you feel like it was coming, or?
Well, no. We're always very hopeful. The thing that we litigated, for example, the financial evidence. As a prosecutor, you have to deal with double jeopardy. So you have to be, aggressive as long as you have a good faith basis in the rules. And as you know, we filed multiple 20-page motions prior to trial, presented all that financial evidence and why we thought this was a unique case for a unique application of the law. And Judge Newman agreed with all of that. So you expect that. And we talked about that before trial, that you would be litigating that on appeal. That's a calculated strategic risk that you do. To have the court hang its hat on the conduct of the clerk, that's certainly very frustrating. But ultimately, I've been doing this a long time. I've done appellate work. It's all part of the process. And, I need my folks to know that it's going to be okay. We'll just go dust ourselves off and go do the job again.
Well, they did an amazing job. I was actually at a panel in Camden, South Carolina with 3 of the members of your team a little over a year ago. And I told that crowd, I'm a big guy for taxpayer value. And I told that crowd in Camden, you got your money's worth with this team. They did an incredible job.
I've got the best staff, the state grand jury staff, and then of course our law enforcement partners as well.
Well, if everybody in South Carolina, what that means that our taxes most definitely will go up once this trial starts. The following year, we will pay for it, and probably the year before. Who knows? It's going to cost a lot of money, and we're going to pay for it.
Most of those folks are still together. I still have my number 2, David Fernandez.
That's for the working class folks.
John Metters, Savannah Gowd, and John Conrad, as well as, my investigators and staff and that sort of thing. So many of the same faces are still here, and we'll be working hard.
Bringing the band back together.
Getting the band back together.
General Wilson, your rivals in the race for governor of South Carolina, in which you are arguably the front runner, they have pounced on this reversal. They have tried to portray it as some sort of an indictment on you politically.
Oh, yeah, he's going for governor.
Political criticism that you've received in the aftermath of the reversals.
Well, of course they're going to do that. I mean, first off, what I love about this is the Supreme Court laid blame squarely on the shoulders of Becky Hill, not on anything that our office did. And the people who are trying to exploit this for political opportunism, it just kind of smacks of desperation, in my opinion. At the end of the day, when they attack me, they're really attacking him, and they're attacking all those names you just mentioned. They're attacking the investigators. But I tell people who ask questions like the one you just asked, for everyone who's read the order and everyone who has watched the news coverage of this, the only people who are attacking me or this office are the people who have something to politically gain. But everyone who is unbiased, everyone who is looking at this with objectivity can see that our office did an excellent job, and this is to be laid on the shoulders squarely on the former Carlson County Clerk of Court. Her conduct was conduct we did not know about at the time. So I think the vast majority of people see this for what it is, and they're going to be very dismissive of those political opportunities.
And she only got like 3 years probation for that too as well.
Any of that coming from Becky Hill? There was never any inkling during the trial, any suggestion that she was talking out of school to the jurors?
If there was, we would have said something.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I wish that we had known about it because we could have fixed it very easily at trial. The fact of the matter is those are kind of issues that if you become aware of them, you can poll the jury right then and there and fix it before the charge, and the judge can address things on the scene. I wish we had known about it then.
Now, she has since been prosecuted by Solicitor Rick Hubbard in the 11th Circuit. A lot of folks have asked, why wasn't she charged with jury tampering? Obviously, that was a decision you entrusted to Solicitor Hubbard. Is it correct to assume that it's a vastly different standard when you're looking at Becky Hill as a defendant whose conduct is prosecutable under jury tampering statutes versus conduct that may or may not have impacted jurors? Is that two different standards, safe to assume?
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm not here to litigate, and we can't. The rules for prosecutors and comment we can make are much, much different than they are for the defense. So,
y'all hear that? The rules for the prosecution team, the state attorneys, are different from what the defense are allowed to say and will say. But let's go. Telling you, the defense lawyers be lying, man, and be buffing stuff up, then and get away with it. Prosecution, not so much.
We have to be guardians of the process. So it wouldn't be appropriate for us to litigate, what Solicitor Hubbard decided to do or not to do. But what it is appropriate to say, and what I would say is yes, as prosecutors, the standard is very high. As you know, ultimately, we have to prove cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And that means you have to have credible witnesses who are corroborated to do so. And so that's the weight of every decision we make as prosecutors.
And that would have been tough in this case because you had 10 jurors, if I'm not mistaken, who said they didn't hear anything.
Well, 11. Well, 10, yeah, and one heard something minor. But, we had 11 jurors in front of Judge Toll who were rock solid that this was, there was no effect on the verdict. They didn't hear anything. And then they had the one juror who hemmed and hawed and was all over the place. And Judge Toll recognized that in her order. From our opinion, and this is what Judge Toll found. This is what we argued to the Supreme Court. This was all about these jurors. And, this idea that after 6 weeks of trial, all those witnesses, all that evidence, Judge Newman, the prosecution team, law enforcement, the defense team, the idea that Becky, makes a couple of, untoward comments and some jurors like, well, I didn't know what to do, but I guess because Becky said something, I'm going to vote guilty. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. That is not to say that any clerk should be making editorializations to a juror. So, don't get us wrong with that. It's just that clearly with the weight of the evidence here, and when you looked those jurors in the eyes, the idea that this verdict was compromised, we said didn't make sense. Judge Toll, who actually looked them in the eyes, found the same way. Supreme Court saw it otherwise. But like the general said, we respect the process. We respect the court. We may not agree with it, but we respect the court and we move on.
Well, and the people are conflating what the state Supreme Court said with jury tampering. Okay, the Supreme Court is obviously looking at a different presumption. Obviously, the presumption's in favor of Mr. Murdaugh, who's the defendant in that case, whose rights were being alleged to have been violated. And if we, in a prosecution against Becky Hill or any defendant, we can talk generally, the presumption is going to be that they are innocent of the statements, not that the statements occurred, but that they didn't occur, and we have to prove that they occurred. And obviously, the burdens for a criminal prosecution are much, much higher. And so those were all determinations that the solicitor made. And I want to go back a little bit further. You know, you covered this very closely, Will. Back when all of these allegations of Ms. Hill's conduct were becoming out into the public, and I think you reached out to me one day and I said, hey, we're going to let this thing play out. Give us some time. And eventually I assigned a detached, impartial, neutral prosecutor to review all of the conduct that Ms. Hill engaged in, not just related to the trial, but, you know, obviously the post-trial hearing, the perjury and the misconduct in her office, the things that she engaged in outside of the trial. And the reason I did that is that I didn't think it would look appropriate for our office to be investigating the individual who could have compromised our prosecution of Mr. Murdaugh, who we had secured convictions on. And I just thought that would have been a bad look. So I thought it was appropriate for a detached person to do that review. Solicitor Hubbard did that review. Obviously, he can speak to that because we had no role in that because it would have been inappropriate, at least from an appearance standpoint. So at the end of the day, you know, people can talk about wanting to go after Becky Hill for jury tampering, but I assigned that, was it about a year and a half ago? It was a year and a half, 2 years, whenever it was over a year ago. That was sent to a separate solicitor to be resolved, and he handled it according to all the facts and the law that he had in front of him.
And he told me this week, he said, I'm comfortable with my decision and I'd like for all the information to come out. Are you both of the opinion that those files should now come out?
Well, absolutely, to some extent. For example, there's the sealed discussion at trial. Both Joe McCullough, who represents multiple jurors and, you know, is a close ally of Dick and Jim, has filed a motion, and Dick and Jim have filed the same motion to unseal that sealed discussion. You know, again, we have to be careful to protect jurors' names, and ultimately a judge needs to decide that. But I have no problem with that coming out, and frankly, look forward to it. On top of that, you know, we have records of the investigation that was done leading up to the new trial. And again, you have interviews with jurors and things like that. Our courts are very, very careful to protect those identities and all the rest of that. So there are things that we would have to work through. There's still information that generally is protected by the law for very important reasons, particularly as it relates to the privacy of jurors. So within those parameters, we're absolutely in favor of you know, information being released to the public.
Let's talk to the extent that you are both able about this second trial. You've indicated you want it to happen within the calendar year in Walterboro. You believe that either of those things are realistic possibilities?
I mean, look, I was speaking aspirationally. I'm a realist and a pragmatist. I mean, look, would I like to have this thing handled prior to the end of the year? Of course. Is my intent to try to do that? Yes, but obviously this is a momentous thing to do. You know, we're obviously considering all of our legal strategy has to be reconsidered in light of the fact that we've got guidance from the Supreme Court we didn't have before. The defense has seen our complete trial strategy from the first trial. We have seen their complete trial strategy. There are some things that they're probably going to modify in their strategy, and then we're going to have to modify our strategy. So there's a lot that goes into this. Reevaluating a case of this size is going to take time. And, you know, does that mean that we're going to do it by the end of the year? I don't know. You know, it seems, I will concede. It seems to be very difficult to get done by the end of the year. I believe that we can have a trial date set up, you know, about when this case will be retried before the end of the year, for sure.
And Mr. Waters, what about the venue? Do you think that?
Well, first of all, I'll say, General, if we can get a trial date for the end of the year, I'll be ready. And I'll get my team ready.
I'm trying to measure expectations.
You're absolutely right.
But here's the thing. I mean, like, if I don't want to put an undue burden on our team, okay? So all of my decisions are made not in a vacuum, but
he's got the band back. He's ready to roll.
We got most of the band back, and obviously we got some people who've retired and on SLED and whatnot, and we'll have to bring all them back. But if we can get this thing teed up before the end of the year, then I will actually move for
Hey,
that
how
to
you
happen.
doing, Dixie? Thank
But
you for
again,
coming
that's
through.
going to be in
Thank you.
consultation with our team, who have to do all the
Pray all
heavy
is
lifting.
well.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, obviously, as it relates to venue, as it relates to a trial date,
All
you
right,
know,
so
our
we're
goal
hearing
is,
from the
you know, as soon as reasonably possible. And the general's absolutely correct.
prosecution
There's a
team.
lot of moving parts to that, and we'll have a status conference at some point where we'll raise those issues. We'll discuss issues of venue. You know, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to litigate that right now, again, because of those rules that prosecutors have that are far more restrictive than any other attorney. Because our
So they absolutely not gonna have it in Carlton County again. They're gonna try to move it once again. My thing was with this thing been on Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, Stars, so many other major platforms. You know, the documentaries, all the interviews, and this is after a conviction. Where could they find a fair and unbiased jurors? However, even if they do know about the case, the instructions would be particularly, can you do this case without bias of anything that you've heard so far? So I think people get it mixed up and think, well, if you didn't seen it on social media or you didn't seen it on TV, that automatically makes you not eligible to be a juror. That's not true. You're asked the question that you're going into it and you are only based a guilty or not guilty based on the evidence that the judge has allowed within the court proceedings. So it's going to be interesting. So now you count on people to be honest. They may already have a preconception of his innocence or guilt. It could go either way.
Applications are much higher. So we'll litigate those issues. But again, I will say that my marching orders, you know, the marching orders I've got from the general is within reason. Let's get this thing rolling as soon as we can.
Let me say this real quick. You know, last week when this thing was all new, right, the fog of war, you know, I think all my statements, like, look, it's my intent to try this thing back in Walterboro County. And that was my intent at the time. It is still my intent. That does not mean when I say that all options and all strategies are on the table, we can evaluate. I mean, the defense, you know, obviously very frustrated with me, but they get to reevaluate their strategy in light of the second trial. We get to do the same thing.
Well, let's talk about all the options being on the table, because you've also taken some heat in the last few days with the considerations regarding the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
This was obviously a case that you guys consulted on initially and decided not to pursue the death penalty in the first trial, but you indicated shortly after these reversals that this time everything's back on the table, including the death penalty. Walk us through that calculus.
Well, so the other day, the defense had a press conference, and Mr. Harpootlian, I mean, as he is known to do, he speaks a lot before he thinks a lot about some things, and he made some allegations about, you know, me talking to my political.
Said it was vindictive?
Yeah, well, he said that, and that's fine.
And it's also been said that there's supposed to be some new evidence in the case saying that Maggie had another person's DNA under her nails. I hadn't heard them say anything about it, but that's what the defense threw out there. Once again, they could be bluffing. Once again, they're not held to the same standards as what the prosecution is held to. So that's yet to be determined. However, her and her husband was separated. I'm just throwing something out there, right? Like, does that mean that if she did have other DNA on her skin, that it actually happened, DNA under her nails, that it happened at the crime scene? So I'm just saying. So I'm not sure what they got going on with that, or whether it's even true yet. But that's what the defense did throw out. But let's go.
And I'm not going to comment on that. But the first person I called when we got a question from another news outlet about whether or not we would consider the death penalty. The first thing I did is I called Creighton, and we had a sidebar. And you know what we both agreed was, we have to treat this trial as if it never happened before, from the point, from the, you know, obviously from the consideration standpoint. Obviously, our strategy is going to change, but So we're going through a checklist of everything, and we're reevaluating this case from the ground up. You know, obviously in 2022, the death penalty wasn't a functioning method at the time. I mean, we hadn't executed anyone since, I think, 2012 because of all the issues that have since been fixed in our law. But obviously, we have to consider everything that happened since the trial as part of that. And so there's so many things we have to consider. But yes, we are going to evaluate this case from A to Z, from top to bottom, and we're going to reevaluate every single decision we had to evaluate the first time in light of everything that's happened.
And it fits multiple statutory criteria for a death penalty case, not just one, it fits several.
It does. It does. And obviously, there's other things we have to consider since this wasn't.
And this is the thing as well. Even let's say even if he did go back to jury trial and he so happened to get a hung jury or not guilty verdict, he still got like over 40 years of his financial crimes. And I think Alec may be like 50, 60 years old. I mean, we're still talking about he's still not getting out. So I think now it's just about reputation and him saving his name for not being found guilty for unaliving, you know, his wife and his son, pretty much. Because he still got 40 over his head on federal crimes. So, but let's go.
Since we didn't take it up the first time, there's other things we have to now look at. But again,
do you think he should pay for these crimes with his life if he is in fact the one who committed them?
I'm going to reserve that conversation for our internal evaluations. So again, all I said and all I've ever said is we're evaluating everything. Doesn't mean we're going to do it. Doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It means we're just going to go through the process. So capital punishment was on the table the first time, and we looked at a bunch of factors for various reasons and decided to go with the strategy we did, but we're back to ground zero again. So we have the right to consider.
It's important not to overcharge.
We would be remiss as lawyers because we are at square one if we didn't, rethink all of these decisions. But ultimately, if capital punishment was sought, it's not for us to say. It would be for a jury to say what the penalty should be. And again, as lawyers, it is our jobs when we're at whatever stage of the process to think through every option. Doesn't mean we're going to do it. Doesn't mean we're not going to do it. What it is that we'll have a process about every aspect of the case, just like we would in any case.
By the way, footnote, members from the unofficial side of my office, the campaign side, because we're in the middle of this election, when they read about it in the news like everyone else, my phone blew up. Like, kind of been nice to have a heads up on this.
So you didn't run it by your political?
No, I ran it with my team on the inside, and that decision was made internally, and the political people learned about it like everyone else.
I wanted to ask you, Creighton, a difficult question, because we've talked about the Supreme Court decision, and what they indicated was their reasoning for reversing it. And of course, it was clearly the conduct of Becky Hill, as you guys have cited, but it was a per curiam opinion. We don't know exactly how which justices viewed specific elements of the arguments. And so on the matter of the financial crimes, they did indicate that Judge Newman left the door wide open, to use the terminology. I interviewed the defense attorneys last week, and during that conversation, Jim Griffin, one of the defense attorneys, claims that he warned you during the trial that you were going too far with introducing financial evidence and that you were risking a reversal. Do you recall him saying that? And
absolutely not. And again, we put all of that, all our cards on the table. And we, again, go back and read those motions. We laid it out. I don't play gotcha. And as I said before, prosecutors live with double jeopardy. If you have a good faith basis for evidence and you leave it on the table and you get an acquittal, you have to live with that for the rest of your life. But we didn't play gotcha with anything. We laid it all out. Ultimately, Judge Newman, a very, very experienced trial judge, listened to all of that and issued a very careful decision in letting it in. So it was a fair process. And ultimately, the Supreme Court recognized the viability of this evidence. They just said, gave us some guardrails as to extent.
And how does that impact this next trial? I mean, to what extent will you go into that financial evidence?
Well, I mean, again, prosecutors don't create facts. The facts are what the facts are. So we will read the Supreme Court's guidance. Again, I can't litigate the case or litigate strategy here pre-trial in the media, and so I won't do that, other than to say we will read the Supreme Court's guidance, which again was a matter of extent, not of admissibility. And so we'll proceed accordingly.
And I want to interject real quick. And I would direct this to Jim Griffin. I would direct this to the people who are attacking the office and me. Supreme Court did not base its reversal on the evidence we got in. The Supreme Court actually says it was permissible, even said it was probative, outweighing the prejudicial effect. And the Supreme Court said that was fine. Now, there were some aspects of that evidence coming in that they wanted to tighten up a little bit. But this reversal wasn't based on the financial evidence that, and by the way, you sat in that trial for nearly every day for 6 weeks. The number of hours that we went in camera, out of the view of the jury, to go through everything meticulously so that the judge could evaluate those financial records coming in, or that financial evidence coming in, was, I mean, we were very careful.
All right, so a whole bunch of lawyer mama jumbo in there. We get the gist of it. And we're gonna go to this video right here. It's gonna be very, very good interview with experts. With experts reading body language and everything about what they feel about Alex Murdaugh. Let's go. Let's check it out.
With the dogs, and I knew she'd gone to the kennel. I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's for just a little while. Tried to call her when I left. Texted her, no response. When I got back to the house was obviously nobody was in there.
Looked like he lied.
So I figured they're still up here fooling around. Paul was gonna be getting set up to plant. Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died, and he was refiguring to plant the sunflower seeds. So I came back up here and I drove up and saw and called.
Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is the first time we see him touch his face, touches his nose. Look, you'll hear people say if a person touches their nose, they're lying. No, we're not those folks. What we're saying is look for a deviation in baseline and ask yourself why. It's a pertinent question and a hard question.
What made you come out here tonight?
And he uses his left hand, touches his face. Suddenly, he does one of the most powerful male adapters that exist. I call it butterfly thighs. And if you ever want to see, men will flip their legs, their thighs in and out that way. Younger men do it a lot, and it has a lot of impact. So that's a big comforting move for a guy to do. All an adapter is a way for you to release nervous energy. And if we do them enough, they become habitual. So if you don't know what yours are, the way you release nervous energy, ask someone next to you. Ask someone who knows you well, because they know what you do when you're releasing nervous energy. Maybe you pick your nails, flip your hair, do something like that. Then he starts to tell a long story that has no pertinence to anything we're talking about. And that is, I went to see my mama. My mama's sick. She's got dementia.
My mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital.
Oh, deflection. Let's go.
My mom gets anxious.
And he goes on and 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 on. And he gives you the cookbook. We call that chaff and redirect because an aircraft drops chaff to hope a missile will follow it rather than the story. That's what he's doing. He's dropping lots of details, hoping you'll follow that. That's odd usually. But again, my wife and son are lying 100 yards away, dead. Somebody murdered them. And I'm going to tell you about my mom's Jell-O she had for lunch. Come on. And he's adapting like all hell with that issue, with his hands and with the other. He goes to that dog lover. She fools with the dog. Boom. One shoulder rises. We hadn't seen that yet. We see a single shoulder. We often associate that with discomfort in the information they're sharing. He does a pause. He does a down left, looks down left, which we associate with internal voice. And he does a head scratch. We associate all of those things with thinking, with giving yourself time to think. He doesn't say what he saw.
Drove up and saw.
Either with words or with body language or with tone. None of that.
And called.
I think the female law enforcement officer in the back senses it, because watch her cross her abdomen in discomfort as he's telling that story. I bet if you went and talked to them, it'd say, this guy,
they
day
did.
one, we thought he killed his wife. That's exactly what I think you'd see. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, there's a cascade of negative statements, victim statements, really. The parents are ill and anxious. Maggie's a dog lover, doesn't love him, loves the dogs. She falls with the dogs. That's negative. Rather than going, she looks after those dogs so well. She's falling with the dogs. And he's texted her and there's no response. So she's not attentive to him. And then Paul is associated with sunflowers dying. So again, not being able to, I mean, more of this story will come out, and maybe he's laying down this story early, but essentially everybody is inept.
So about the sunflowers is also in trial. He tried to say almost like maybe the guy that's supposed to have been taking care of the sunflowers that actually, or whatever it was in the field, that maybe that guy had an issue with Paul. And the guy thought of everything. But let's go.
Ultimately, parents are non-functioning.
Mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital.
Wife loves animals.
Maggie's a dog lover. And she fools with the dogs.
Messes around and doesn't answer the phone.
Tried to call her when I left. Texted her. No response.
And Paul can't look after sunflowers.
Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died, and he was refiguring to plant the sunflower seeds.
So really casting a bad light on the victims there, and him being around people who can't look after themselves or the things that are important, or him. That alone is a loud flag. You can't have a loud flag, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's a loud flag. It's a loud flag. Chase, what do you got on this one?
This is detail overload. There's a few things I want you to notice as you go through the video again in just a second. Number one, the detail and just the chronology of everything is loaded and piled high. But none of the details are about finding out who did this. There is no request to investigate the scene or talk about the word murder. It's the last word in the world that he wants to come out of his mouth at a moment like this. And the confirmation glances back and forth where he's checking that detective with every detail, in this clip especially, just to make sure he's buying it, are just a classic hallmark of deception. It's one of the things we look for when we see a lot of other behaviors and they're outside of baseline, like we're seeing here. And when he says, obviously nobody was in there, I think he's telling us it was obvious to him that nobody was going to be in that house. And finally, we have something called severity softening and lack of detail. There's tons of minute, perfect little details about the intricate process he's going through with these sunflower seeds.
Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died.
Then, what's the detail on the crime scene?
Drove up and saw and called.
That's the difference between sunflower seeds versus dead family members here. Scott?
Nice. After the question, you're right, Greg. He touches the middle part of his head there, the middle of his brow there. Haven't seen that yet, just other than rubbing his whole face. And then he does this really quick request for approval. That's another one of Greg's things where your eyebrows go up as you're looking to get something okayed, or you're asking a question, you need some information. His eyebrows go up and he starts adapting, I guess, what you call that butterfly thing, Greg. And then he starts using his Kleenex as an adapter, which we talked about would happen earlier. We talked about that was going to happen. A whole lot of movement in comparison to the baseline we've seen up to this point, because he's been fairly still up till now. This is where it makes me think something would be up with this.
Have you ever had a moment late at night? It's like 11:30. You're lying in bed and you notice like a weird symptom. So you do what probably none of us should really do, and we start Googling it. And suddenly you're 10 tabs deep, fully convinced that something is seriously wrong. The idea of calling a doctor in the morning, sitting on hold, waiting weeks .com/TVP. The link is all.
It's just a list.
I went to check on them and Maggie, and I knew she'd gone to the kennel. Tried to call her, texted her, no response.
He's rehearsed this.
Yeah.
He knew what he was going to say when he came into this. When this question came up, he's got his list of things that happened and things that he was going to talk about. You see a couple of those little shoulder shrugs, a single shoulder shrug here and a single one there, and then a full one there. But the thing is with shoulder shrugs, and you'll hear a lot of things about them, but here's what we are under the impression or understand that shoulder shrugs indicate, is when one shoulder goes up, that indicates the person isn't sure about their answer. Not that they're being deceptive, but it just says they're not sure about what that answer is. And I think he's afraid. He's trying to make sure he's covering every basis. He's thinking about that. I guess in his brain, maybe he's thinking, okay, I've got that covered. Let me see what else. Yeah, I got that. I think as he goes down this list, that's why we're seeing those things. But throughout this, he still hasn't used that Kleenex for what you use them for. All right, we good?
Mm-hmm. What made you come out here tonight?
I went to, my mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital.
That's not what he asked you.
My mom gets anxious when she does. I went to check on them.
It's not what he asked you, sir.
Maggie's a dog lover, and she fools with the dogs. And I knew she'd gone to the kennel.
Whole bunch of fillers. Let's go.
I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's for just a little while.
Look at him, just
Tried
lying.
to call her when I left. Texted her, no response.
Now you're trying to get it right. Look at it. Scratching
When
his
I got
head.
back to the house was obviously nobody was in there. So I figured they're still up here fooling around. Paul was gonna be getting set up to plant. Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died, and he was refiguring to plant the sunflower
Bro,
seeds.
get to the answer.
So I came back up here and I drove up and saw
What you saw?
and called.
What you did?
But you never told them all this new story that you've constructed in light of this trial. Is that correct?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
And at the same time, you also looked at this jury and tried to tell them that you had been cooperative in this investigation.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect.
So you wasn't cooperative. You lied. This guy think he's slick. But let's go.
Of this investigation.
Very cooperative, except for maybe the most important fact of all, that you were at the murder scene with the victims just minutes before they died. Right?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel.
No,
Chase,
you
what do
didn't
you
tell
got?
him you was
So
ethics
I'm going to leave
on,
body
not went
language
to the
out of
kennel.
this for right now.
You
So I want
admitted
you
to
to
going to
consider
the kennel.
something from a profiling only perspective. So if someone's family members are killed and they want to find out what happened, what reasonable or sane person would lie about their story?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
So in a lot of cases, guilty people are going to admit to one lie so they can appear to be coming clean.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect of this investigation.
We might call this a micro or a mini confession. And this sometimes serves to alleviate this natural human desire to confess. And this admission about lying makes guilty people feel like they're admitting fault. And unconsciously, they believe that they're shaping how we see them. So if they're coming clean about this one thing, they must not be guilty.
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel.
So that might be something that we're seeing here. And this is just a tremendous red flag that the lie is there existing in the Mark?
Yeah, so he is very good at not answering with yes or no answers, as the prosecutor is trying to rally him into simple yes or no. He'll tend to repeat the question back in the opposite of how it's been put forward.
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel.
Not contracted, so very clear and uncontracted in telling you the opposite of what is being rallied into.
Very cooperative, except for maybe the most important fact of all, that you were at the murder scene with the victims just minutes before they died. Right?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel.
And I think that's purposeful. He knows what the prosecutor is trying to do, get him to say yes or no answers. It's going to be simpler to put him in a corner if he'll do yes or no. Let me just pick up on one element of body language, which I think is kind of interesting. You're right, Greg, that we didn't in the first visit with the police see any forehead action. We had a lot of forehead action here. So we've got to think to ourselves, well, is he putting it on to show concern, or is he actually concerned and under pressure? In order to work out which one it is, I would put alongside that his chest is very concave at the moment. Shoulders are in, chest is concave, protecting vital organs on the body, as we often say. So I might bias towards the stress in the forehead is potentially real stress at this point, not a concern that he's putting on for the audience. Now, I could be wrong. It could be the opposite. But all I'm saying to you is, look, I'm trying to put information together to come to a best guess conclusion, and then always test my guesses. Test my guesses about what else do I see? What else do I know? What do my friends around me think it is? What do other experts around me think it is? So at the moment, I would bias towards though he's used to this situation from not the side that he's on at the moment, but the other side, though he's used to that court, he's not used to being here. He could be under real stress and pressure here. Greg, what do you think? What do you got on this one?
Yeah, let's start off by talking about the liar's loop, something Scott and I have in the True Crime Workshop. But the liar's loop says you get a trigger, and then you got to fabricate, and then you deconflict inside your head, then you pitch, then you get challenged. Now, when you get challenged, you have to defend. And then what happens to you is you get in a spiral if the questioner's doing a good job. Let's assume he killed her. He had time, or his family, he had time after he killed to fabricate for information while he was waiting for the police and 911. Now, we're going to hear a lot of really interesting details as we go. So he's deconflicted that stuff in his head. And Chase, what you're talking about, I think is kind of a paving stone. If I flip this paving stone over, you won't check the rest. We'll say there's where the problem is. And what he's doing, I always call that trading guilt. He'll throw out some guilt it's an ultimate redirect. Look, I lied. I'm sorry I lied. And you redirect to there. We'll find out later when he said he lied. And interestingly, for the four of us, we all saw it. When he was in the car, we knew something changed. All this red flagged his baseline deviation. And he admits that's when he decided to lie. But interestingly, he's got all that grief muscle, the concern, all this stuff showing up in his head. And we say grief muscle is the arch, but these muscles actually are part of that. And that grief muscle is a combination of 5 muscles. I want you to listen to the difference in the way he responds to the first 2 questions. One is telling.
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
And the other is halting and shifting as he goes through it.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect of this.
At the time of death.
So
man, get out of
something's
here.
changed in the way he is responding to 2 questions. He's got something there that he did before. That's good enough. I'll just leave it at that. And Scott, what do you got?
I think right here, his story didn't work. So he's trying to he's coming with something else, and it's messed up his timeline. So he's having to go back and try to correct that. I think that's part of what's giving the stress here as well. But at the same time, he's so focused on that prosecutor because his blink rate is low. His eyes are a little bit wide compared to what they've been in what we've seen up to this point. And when he has that direct eye contact when they lock, it lasts even longer.
Because see, one thing about these trials, you know the evidence that they have against you because you had a chance to look at it. And hopefully you and your lawyer caught it. But one thing about it, and 2 things for sure, you do not know the questions they're going to ask you about the evidence and the findings. And that's what I find very important when people talking about a case. It's like you can know all the evidence in the world, but you have no idea how it's going to play out in court. There's not no pre-question. It's not a question there. It's none of that. And most of all, you don't know what the judge is going to allow in or out based on objections from the opposed legal team. But let's go.
I mean, between blinks. So I think that was really interesting. He doesn't use any illustrators at all. He's really still, and that lets us know something's up here because he's really careful about what he's saying. He has to couch everything perfectly because this could be the question that sends him to the pokey for the rest of his life. That's what I got.
But you never told them all this new story that you've constructed in light of this trial. Is that correct?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
And at the same time, you also looked at this jury and tried to tell them that you had been cooperative in this investigation.
Answer the question.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect of this investigation.
Very cooperative, except for maybe the most important fact of all, that you were at the murder scene with the victims just minutes before they died. Right?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel.
I wish you would have asked him which time.
Maggie was heard in the background, and you were heard in the background, and that was prior to 9 p.m.
I heard Rogan Gibson ask me.
I think this is when they hit him with that the recording. Up until this point right here, he had been lying about being there.
If I was up there, he said he thought it was me.
Was it you?
At 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, this is when he lied.
If my times are right.
Who do you think it could have been?
I have no idea.
And Rogan's been around your family for pretty much all of his life.
Oh, absolutely.
And he recognizes your voice, and you have a distinct voice.
Or just when the friend gave up the video.
Anybody else that has a voice similar to yours that he may have misinterpreted?
No, sir. I mean, when we were talking, he had asked me that. So, I mean, he had told me that he thought I was up there.
Did that surprise you?
Yes, sir.
So when you return back to the kennels, when you return home from your mom's,
All right, Greg, what do you got?
This is why we tell you not to come in with a wonky baseline, because you see he's been locked down. Now watch that thumb. He's got I think he has a tissue in that hand if you watch, and he's just wearing the hell out of that tissue. Scott, to your point, he never uses it for tears, but he sure is adapting on it. It's a tissue or something else. Kind of like a kid has a whoopee or something and they play with it all the time and they feel stressed. All of us do something. When he's asked the question about 9 o'clock, he distances, gives himself a split second to answer by saying, at 9 o'clock.
Was it you?
At 9 o'clock.
Then you see the rocking and his foot pressing on the floor. That's a lot when you came in locked down as tight as he was. That's why you don't do that and why you can't hide something. Chase, you always talk about politeness spikes. There's definitely a deferential sir at no, it's not just no sir, it's no sir. And I cannot think of anyone else.
Do you think of anybody else that has a voice similar to yours that he may have misinterpreted?
No, sir.
There's no protest in this guy at all at being accused of being, and this is accusation by question. We all do it in the interrogation room. Is there any reason? You call it bait questions, and in regular intelligence interrogation, we'll call it put on notice by question. There's all kinds of things you may call it. But he is being accused by question, and he's not defiant. He's not indignant. His chin is not out, and there's no eye locked. That makes me go, why is this guy doing this? Scott, what do you got?
All right. So we see he's changed his leg positions and he's loosened up just a little bit. That's because he's eased up. That first part, I think, is obviously at the beginning. So he's really, really tense at this point. or up to that point. Now he's sort of relaxed, not relaxed, but he's letting go just a little bit. So he's gone from guarding his stomach and keeping that tight down to guarding his genitals, which we saw in the car as well. So I think he's realized from a body language perspective, since the fight is on now and he knows it is, he's got to look and sound like he's being honest. So I think he's, in a small way, I think he's taking into consideration what he looks like just a little bit, not much, but just a little bit more. So he's not as squinched up as he was. And like you said, Greg, a lot going on with that thumb and forefinger, man. Looks like he's almost like playing a air banjo, and his voice is quiet. And there are no big pops of voice volume, and his tone doesn't jack up or anything. He's focused, so he's going in fairly steady at this point. And then after the question comes about the time of his whereabouts.
At 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
His head goes into that bobble thing where he's saying, where his head is yes and no and spinning around. I think if we didn't understand what that was, we'd see that more as confusion, because I think he's sorting out what he's going to say and being very careful to how he says it, which is important to him because now he's got to remember everything he's saying, because as far as we know, something may have changed in the story he prepared to this story now. That's what it looks like, because there's a whole lot of thinking going on in there. Taking the stress he's experiencing from the interrogator in consideration, yeah, but it looks like a little bit more than that to me. I'll leave it there. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so we're all in agreement that he was choosing to do this behavior. I think we're probably right to say he's choosing to do that because he wants to lock it down. He wants to be in control. And this is now 10 minutes later and he's changed. And I think that is a result of the interview that's going on and the interviewer. The interviewer has managed to get some element of change out of him. I reckon I could do this all day if I really, really wanted to, unless there's something else occupying my mind that I then forget to do this and start to do behaviors which are more unconscious to me. And so to your point, Scott, I think this protection of the primary sexual characteristics, which we're now seeing, is more unconscious behavior of him. So if the interviewer has done anything here, yes, it's caused him to have to think about other elements that are going on, most likely the story that he's telling. And so we're getting more unconscious rather than conscious behavior out of him. So another unconscious behavior we're seeing is that thumb move, which, yes, is partly adaptation on the tissue or handkerchief that's there, but also we're seeing it as a baton gesture as well, a gesture that moves along to the rhythm of his speech. Although it doesn't quite move along exactly to the rhythm of his speech. The baton gesture, the conducting is incongruent with the rhythm. So I'm going to suggest, take a look at how incongruent the rhythm of that thumb is, have a listen to what he's talking about, and then think to yourself, is it incongruent because there's extra stress and pressure around this particular element that he's talking about?
Rogan Gibson asked me if I was up there. He said he thought it was me.
Was it you?
At 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Is what he's talking about right now, is this going to end up being absolutely consequential to the case? Is it important data? Is he unconsciously signaling how important this element of the story that he's most likely creating is? But look at that. Really subtle changes ultimately that we can start to think about and think, what is the consequence of this further down the line? Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, you guys covered a lot. I'll just cover one more thing here. When he says, no, sir, not if my times are right.
Was it you?
At 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
His time, not good time, but his time.
Not if my times are right.
I want you to just pay attention to that. The qualifier here is one of the biggest red flags you can possibly get as an interrogator. And I'll tell you why here. There is a known piece of information that any reasonable human being could answer from memory. Were you down there? Were you present during this video? So when he makes the denial, it's about time instead of memory. And this is where an interrogator would be asking something like, are you certain that your times are even correct or right? The temptation for most people to jump onto this deception is almost irresistible. And instead, I think it's best to accumulate these mistakes and red flags over a period of time, especially with people like this. If you read the average interrogation training, it's going to tell you that undetected lying is rewarding. But in cases like this, where there's lots of rehearsal and stuff, you want to get a mountain of this kind of stuff. So in interrogations like this, especially when you're interrogating an attorney, confessions are extremely unlikely. So your job here as the interrogator instead is to develop these red flags. The moment you call someone out on one of those, a wall starts building. So you don't do that. You keep pouring water on these little red flag seeds so they become bigger red flags that the jury can watch during the replay. That's all I got.
Same thing's true in intelligence. Exactly.
And Maggie was heard in the background, and you were heard in the background, and that was prior to 9 p.m.
I heard Rogan Gibson ask me if I was up there. He said he thought it was me.
Was it you?
At 9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Lie.
Not
Look at
times
him. Look at you rocking. I want to do that catch that. Do they catch him rocking?
I have no idea.
When he said at 9 o'clock?
And Rogan's been around your family for pretty much all his life.
Oh, absolutely.
And he recognizes your voice, and you have a distinct voice. Do you think of anybody else that has a voice similar to yours that he may have misinterpreted?
No, sir. I mean, he.
Crazy work.
You know, when we were talking, he had asked me that. So, I mean, he had told me that he thought I was up there.
Did that surprise you?
Yes, sir.
So when you return back to the kennels, when you return home from your mom's,
All right, fellas, I think this was another good one, and we'll see you next time.
So what do you got?
It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. As y'all heard, there will be another trial. I was hoping they didn't do a change of venue, but they are. Hopefully still be somewhere in South Carolina. Where I'm at, I'm kind of in the middle of everything. So most definitely want to try to go get some coverage from that live. You can count on that. I can't see it being too far from me. So where I won't be able to get down there a couple of days to actually get some live footage. Because the last time it was open to the public, there was people out there, on the ground. So it's safe to say, the Lord is willing, I will be able to get some of that real coverage, some of that firsthand coverage. I plan on it. So once again, just like the thumbnail said, Alex Murdaugh's retrial, a rich man's justice, because his Sixth Amendment was violated by the clerk of court, Becky. And the reason why I named it that is because we see the Sixth Amendment be violated on so many other different cases for whatever reason. And I think it was because of him, because of his, because of his position, because of the notoriety of the family, the money, that he actually got this opportunity to get tried. And I'm all about when justice work. I think when justice work, justice needs to work for all. So that's my take on it. I want to thank everybody that came through. It's greatly appreciated. And try to get more consistent, get back on track. I had a lot going on with my kennels and working and just trying to get things situated, man. Trying to stay focused. Re-engage myself with positive energy. So, if I'm filled with positive energy, I can put positive energy out. And that's what I focus on. So once again, it's your boy, Old Boy, checking in from Old Boy's Corner, representing South Carolina in the biggest way. So with that being said, we're going to get out of here unless somebody want to come up and talk about it. Anybody got any commentary on the Alec Murdaugh case? Any questions? I'll drop the link and see. But if not, your boy gonna get out of here. Hope everybody have a good Memorial Day on Monday. And whatever you do, I know it's raining here, so the weather been ugly. So I don't think too many people gonna do too much of anything. But if you do anything, make sure you be safe. Be safe and have fun doing it. Yeah, so Alec Murdaugh, man, the thing about it, it's sad what happened to Paul. It's sad what happened to Maggie. It's sad what happened to Mallory. Her name was Gloria, the housekeeper. Gloria Satterfield. And Stephen Smith, that somehow has been lingering over this family as well, thinking that may have had something to do with his untimely death. And they actually kicked dust up on it for a while. But then all of a sudden it went away. It went away. So I personally think he'll be found guilty again. Like I say, but if not, he's still going to be in jail for a very long time for his financial crimes. So no one want to talk about it. That's fair in our game. I'm going to get out of here, man. Once again, thank everybody for checking in from Old Boy's Corner. This is your boy, Old Boy, representing South Carolina in the biggest way. And I'm out. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. We like 1,070 up. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell a cousin to tell a cousin. Tell a aunt to tell a aunt. Tell a mother to tell a mother. We got more content coming on a consistent basis. Be here. I will be doing Sunday service, Gospel Power Hour tomorrow. In between 2 and 4. If you're catching this on the replay, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe now. Welcome to the corner. It's your boy, Old Boy. We here. We back. We positive. We bigger. We're stronger. So let's rock out. Everyone be blessed.